You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Facebook, we are YBM Chat Podcast. Instagram at YBM Chat. You can listen to us on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts at YBM Chat. Hey, it's Deja D.
Hey, it's Cassandra.
Hey, it's Trey Down.
It's your girl, Lady Nova.
And we are
YBM Chat.
young Black millennials offering you a fresh new take you didn't know you needed.
Boy.
All right, so this week I want to highlight Meg Thee Stallion. I feel like people are only seeing her for one thing and not the next. So she is supposed to be graduating college, I believe, in the fall. So congrats to her. And her plan is to open up an assisted living facility. There were people who were judging her about that, trying to say I'm glad she became a rapper and not a nurse, in which that's very judgmental because Trina's out here with a whole law degree, if I'm not mistaken. And she was still talking about sucking dick. But hey, you can have the best of both worlds. It just is a thing.
That made me think
Not
of
only-
Montana.
Let's not talk about her little simple wig reveals. I'm Hannah Montana. We do. Outside of that, I just saw that Meg Thee Stallion will be partnering with U.S. Representative Sheila Jackson Lee and some others to restore Houston following their winter storm. I think Tory Lane said something, but sir, nobody was paying you no mind about doing anything for Texas. I'm not even in Texas yet, and we don't want you there. So just keep you and your little scalp where you at, and leave it there.
He probably already left it there. What do you mean?
That too, because that thing, my God, was that thing. Them so-called dreads was sparse. They were one here, one over here, and then skin. So,
Not the patches.
like, sweetheart, in the corner you go. Continuing on the topic of Texas, this is a more upsetting story. And when I read it and heard about it, I was itching. There is a young boy by the name of, I believe, SeMarion in Plano, Texas, that they are raising money for because he was being bullied in school. They told the school that he was being bullied, and the school did nothing. That led him to quitting the football team, in which he liked playing football, but he didn't feel safe, so he quit. And then a ton of events happened. One of the friends, quote unquote friends, asked him to come to a sleepover. That gave him some reassurance. He was happy. He went, and it was him and 7 white students at the sleepover. And while he was there, they shot him with BB guns. They punched him, slapped him, and forced him to drink their urine, all while saying racial slurs. So now this young boy is wanting to exchange schools and is already about to be going through therapy for this. My take was, where in the bloody fuck were the parents? And why didn't y'all stop any of this from happening? There's no way you did not know that your child was involved with this, because as a parent, you should know who your child is friends with and exactly what that connection is like. And if your son had never mentioned that boy or brought him over there, then you should have been like, okay, well, this is new. And then for your child to be in middle school and already knowing what it's like to call another gentleman a nigga, like you're in middle school. Why is that word coming out of your mouth so freely? And don't hit me with the music BS, because I know somebody's going to be out there to say, well, it's in music. Kissing my ass is free, and that ain't music. So there's that.
What I really hate about this subject is really, like, one, the parents, definitely, but two, it's like the parents probably see that as, oh, they're just young boys. They're just playing around. Like we've all had, well, at least, when I was growing up, I've had guy friends we used to hang out with. Never would be like that, but still like, guys, when guys, younger guys hang out, they sometimes may like, play fight or whatever the case is. So that's what, I don't know if they were around in that moment, that's probably what they were thinking about. But what bothers me more about this is the fact that like, these people take pleasure out of like, out of making someone else's life seem so worthless. And I hate that. And the only reason why it hurts me to death because I've been bullied before. And it's like, and now we're in a generation where there are so many more resources where people can get help. So like people who have that mindset, just go get help, because trying to make someone else's life seem worthless just because it makes you feel better is not cool. It's not cool for real.
It really speaks volumes because I was told that they are about to go and hold a protest at the police station out there in Plano because nothing was done when it should have been done at the school. It's like,
I want to start by saying I do agree with both of you. I feel like sometimes we put a lot of pressure on teachers. We put a lot of pressure on teachers to get it right all the time and to be able to have eyes on every single child at every single moment. They're in middle school. They get a little more leeway to kind of roam and do their thing, while teachers need a break too. They need a mental break. So during that planning period, during that lunch period, I'm sorry, I don't blame them for having time to congregate with other teachers. And so they might miss something. However, I really agree with the fact that parents need to be paying attention. There's no reason why a child is at your home and has been forced to drink urine.
Yeah.
How does that happen? And you don't know about it.
Like how Trey Dub said, yeah, there's a difference between, like, me being a female, we wrestled, that we watched WWE and all the other stuff too, but I'm pretty sure that was a 7-on-1 type deal. Yeah. It's very obvious he was the only Black male.
For those of you who don't know, I work in 2 middle schools, and I've had cases where nudes are being sent out in middle school. And see, what happens with this is, if something happens off of school grounds, it can become very sticky to try to discipline the child in the school because it did not happen in school, right? However, the schools that I'm at, if something like that happens, if the kid has evidence, like screenshots of Instagram, screenshots of text messages, and they bring it to the school will bring in law enforcement and say, hey, you guys can handle this, we can't. And so I don't know what the policies are in Texas, but I can see them helping out. But if it happened off of school grounds, it is hard for them to say, all right, we're going to do this because it didn't happen there. Yes, they're students, but it didn't happen during school hours and it didn't happen on campus. So I hope that they figure it out and that those kids get some form of punishment because they deserve it. That's disgusting.
When you have 8 boys in a room, he had to have been yelling, screaming. I know you say y'all wrestle, when you was little, but play wrestling and you getting shot with a BB gun, that don't feel good. You know what I'm saying? Nobody's going to sit there and laugh that off. He had to have been yelling or saying something or asking for help or something. At what point did that adult come in a room and said, are y'all okay? Even if she thought they were playing.
I didn't hear the BB gun part.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you said right at the beginning?
Yeah.
So, you know what I'm saying? So for them to do all this, there's no way the parent didn't hear that. So either 1, she left 8 boys in the house by themselves and didn't know, or 2, she knew and just was like, let them do what they're going to do. It's fine.
And it's going to sound comical, but anytime that I've been in somebody's house, and that's family, because I've never spent the night at anybody's house outside of family, you hear, the kids, you hear noise, all right, back there, what's happening? Right. Y'all doing too much. Time to wind it down. Time to go to bed.
Check on y'all. Y'all too quiet, because that happens too. If you too quiet, what y'all doing?
Coming in there. All right now. Y'all all right in here? Y'all been a little quiet for a little too long. Y'all ready for bed? All right. No.
This is why we have hashtags like Black Lives Matter, protect Black women, protect Black kids, because we're not just wanting to protect them after they're dead, right? We want to make sure that they have a voice now and that they're being protected now so that we don't get to that point. Because who knows what the long-lasting effects are going to be for him psychologically.
Yes, my thing is bullies need to be held accountable. I don't care if they're white, black, green, blue, whatever. Bullies need to be held accountable for and I say, and honestly I agree with Daisha when she said that teachers have a lot of pressure on them, and I understand that. That's why I said you need to punish these people that are making another person's lives hell. In middle school, they know. I feel like in middle school, we all know, well, at least what we was doing by middle school now. Enough to talk to someone, talk to a parent, talk to a guidance counselor, talk to a principal, talk to a damn teacher. Talk to somebody if you are clearly feeling so little in your life to where you have to make someone else feel the same way as you. Like, hold these bullies accountable. That's my thing.
There's so. Oh, go ahead.
Punishment, in my opinion, because it's like because it leads to the suicides and stuff like that, you know. So,
I feel like this could have been a whole episode in itself, to be honest, because we could continue. No, you're fine. I think all of this has been great. We are going to send SeMarion. I feel like I'm going to say his name wrong. Love and light and healing. And I hope that the ignorant souls who decided to bully him, that's a light word there, to terrorize him would be a better word. Humiliate him, get the punishment that they deserve. But Cassandra, you said earlier that people learn these things. They learn these behaviors. And that's something that I wanted to really talk about tonight. Because you said they learn it from their parents, right? Mm-hmm. And your family is your foundation. There was a show called Put a Ring on It on OWN, and there were these 4 couples, and they've kind of hit a rough spot in their relationships. And so the experiment is that they will date other people for several weeks. And in the end, they decide if they're going to stay with their partner or be for the streets. So
they knew that before they signed up for the show?
Yes, they knew that before they signed up. So there's a session that they have where it's a whole group. And the therapist on there is Dr. Nicole LaBeach. And she was asking them, she was like, well, what were your family dynamics like? And there was a guy in there named Hollywood. He gave this spiel about how his mom wasn't nurturing. His mom wasn't protective of him, and almost seemed like she resented the fact that he was here. He said all of this, but then he was like, but she was a good mom though. And he felt the need to defend her. And Dr. Nicole LaBeach was like, you're not dishonoring her by speaking your truth. Mm-hmm. And that's so simple, but it's so true. I feel like a lot of times people hold back what they share, especially us, because of how we're raised. You know, family business stays in the house. But what happens is family business stays in the house and people continue to hurt and people never heal. So tonight I am going to create a space and bring in my fellow co-hosts to really go there, hopefully, with this topic. So, like I said, your family is your foundation, and they teach you how to nurture and create relationships. So my first question to you guys is, what was your family structure? Meaning, were you in a single parent home? Were your parents married? Were your parents divorced? What did that look like?
So for me, I kind of had both. In the beginning, it was a married household, but then most of like my, I guess, younger years going into school up until now was a single mother household. So I have an older brother, so just me and him, and then my mother. And so that structure, as far as like how it was, she really was a busy woman, you know, a single mother taking care of 2 boys, stuff like that. So my brother, in turn, had to in some way be the man of the house. Being that he's the older brother and things like that. So when it came to conflict between me and my brother, she would try to resolve it, attempt to resolve it, but there was no resolution. I'm gonna be honest about that. It just was, well, go into your separate rooms and go to bed.
So did y'all go to your daddy's house on the weekends? I really don't even know the answer to that. So did y'all go to your dad's house on the weekends, or how did that look?
Mm-mm.
No,
we didn't. Because I'll be honest, my parents had issues. Like they had issues within themselves. it displayed something to us, but it never affected us, if that makes sense. So yeah, we definitely noticed that.
I'm gonna challenge that later.
Right? Yeah. Because I mean, like, you know, me and my issues had nothing to do with our parents whatsoever. It was like, you know, we would piss each other off, and which would lead to like physical altercation. So yeah.
Okay. Anyone? Family structure. You don't have to go into like conflict and all of that just yet. Just family structure. How did it look?
So 35 going on 36 years. I cannot tell you anything about them being apart because I don't know it, except for if my daddy was at work. I know when I was younger, he had about 3 jobs maybe. Could have been more. I don't know. He's always been busy. So my mom always working, but when it came to us, there was always an us. We always had what we needed. So
okay. And then so y'all know my mom had me at 14, and I have no idea who my real dad is. And it was always me and her, and then she had my little brother, and we had his dad for a while, maybe 6-7 years, and then he left and she got married to her husband now. He's been there kind of ever since, but
yeah. And for me, my parents were high school sweethearts. They had me at 19. They split up when I was 2. So I don't have any memories of them actually being together. I don't know what that's like. So most of my life has been, I live with my mama, I go to my daddy's house on the weekends. Like that was the routine. Well, every other weekend, because the other weekends I went to Dolores's house, which is my granny, to go to church. But that's neither here nor there.
You get into Bible study, whether you like it.
Listen, my stomach been touching my back by the end of that service. Okay, so, and then my mom, both of my parents dated other people. My mama ended up meeting my now stepfather when I was 6, and they've been together since then. They've been together since then. And then my dad got married and my mother got married in the same year to other people when I was 13. But in that time period, my father was, I think when I was 7, he was incarcerated. So from the time I was 7 until I was 11, I did not see him. I got letters from him, I got phone calls from him, but I did not see him physically. He got out at 11, and then I think went back in when I was 16, and then again did not get out until I was like 22. So you have a full picture of what that looks like. So now that we kind of have the structure of things, I want to know what the dynamics were, meaning what did the interactions look like between the people in your immediate family? How did you guys act emotionally, physically? How were things economically? Like how did that look dynamics wise? And I can give an example of my own if that makes more sense.
Yeah, give an example.
Sure.
Give an example. So I grew up in a very matriarchal family, meaning it was mostly women, right? There's my granny, and then she has mostly daughters, and they were the breadwinners of their families. There weren't a lot of men around. So for instance, when I started dating, guys would be like, oh, you want me to make a certain amount of money? I'm not used to that because I grew up with the mindset like, I got me, I don't need a man, right? Because that's what I saw. I just saw women doing what they had to do for themselves and for their kids, if that makes sense. So the matriarchal thing was a dynamic. Also, family full of women, very emotional. So things would happen, people get into arguments, everybody would cry when they got into an argument. Everybody in my family cries when they get mad, including me. And other than that, again, going back to like the women, I'm used to seeing a very alpha woman. My mother is very much alpha in her relationship, so she's gonna tell you how she feels, whether you like it or not, and that's just what it is. But then I saw my daddy in relationships, and I have multiple siblings. I have a basketball team of siblings. So that lets you know. So that lets you know what was happening on his side. So from him, I saw him dealing with multiple women. And so in my eyes, I felt like, and partnered with the incarceration, I guess I started to view men as just being selfish and people that are not dependable, and they just run the streets. They care, maybe, but they're not dependable, and they run through women, and that's just what it is. So.
Okay. Well, now I know. I better. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So my household dynamic. So again, I was raised by a single mother for most of the time that I personally could remember. My dad was in the picture, just not in the same household. So me and my brother didn't have those weekends where we would, go to him and stuff like that. Because at the time, or during those times, he didn't have a stable place to stay, whether he was staying with his mother, my grandmother, or, with other family members or whatever. Now, my immediate family, at least on my mom's side, because that was pretty much who it was around for most of both of our lives, was mostly women as well. So the women were like the breadwinners and stuff like that. We didn't really have, me and my brother didn't have really much men to look up to. Not even in our like families, not even uncles, stuff like that. I have two uncles. One passed away when I was 4, and the other, he was in the military most of our younger years, in which then he, traveled a lot. So he wasn't really relevant in both of our lives that much anyway. But yeah, so again, well, it was just me and my brother. Our grandmother, my mom's mom, she definitely played a very prominent role in me and my brother's lives growing up and stuff like that. Because my mom, she worked a lot, meaning that, her and my dad weren't in the same house as us. And so, like, my grandmother stepped in a major way. Like, my mom had to work late night shifts. And while my brother, I recall one specific time where I was in 8th grade and my brother was in college at the time. And so my mom started doing like late night shifts. So I used to have to spend weeks at my grandmother's house and weekends at my mom's house because of that ordeal or whatever. So yeah, I hope that answers the question, unless I'm missing something.
I do have a question to push you a little bit. So earlier you said that your parents, I think that's what you said, that your parents' conflict did not affect you and your brother.
Mm-hmm.
Can you elaborate on that? Why you think that that's the case?
Yeah, because like, of course there are issues like, came with like, adultery and stuff like that. My dad stepped out on the family, and then it never really affected us. I at least for the boys, because it's like, me and my brother, we kind of like developed in some way our own independence. My brother with like the sports and the football and stuff like that. Me just kind of staying to myself in my room playing video games and stuff like that. So like when it came to issues between my mother and my father, it never like, at least to me, it never really hurted us. It never really hurt us because we know who our dad was. And of course, like, both of my parents dated, other people during time of us growing up. And I would say like when I was in high school, both of my parents kind of found their person outside of each other that they're dating or with till now. So yeah.
I guess I was talking less about what they were fighting about and more about how they were fighting. So like, how did your parents deal with conflict? Were they the type where screaming and yelling, cussing each other out? Was it give each other the silence treatment and then we talk? Like, what did that look like? Is what I was more so talking about.
It definitely was the yelling back and forth and the screaming, whether it was face to face or on the phone. Like, yeah, like, so my mom is an alpha woman. She does have a tendency to be kind of bossy, and however, my father, he's like very laid back, and he won't be told by anyone but of how to run his life. So yeah. So it kind of was a more of a yelling, screaming back and forth when conflict did come about, and we're in most cases there wasn't a resolution.
Okay, that's gonna relate to the next thing. Either two of y'all can go.
So it was me, and like I said, my mom and my brother. And I have my aunt and uncle, and then my granny. So I guess it technically was more women, but I mean, I had my uncle too. But I mean, I don't know, like you said, like the women in our family were very strong, like independent work, 2, 3 jobs all the time. Didn't really want or need a man to pay the bills or, rely on them for anything.
How did they handle conflict in your family?
Oh my Lord, very abusive.
There we
And
go.
it wasn't until we recorded a few episodes ago that I learned that domestic violence goes both ways, because I always thought, okay, domestic violence to me always was the man beating on the woman sitting in the corner crying, and that's all she wrote. But it wasn't until then that I realized that it's legit. Yeah, he hitting her, but she hitting him too. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, and not just defense, like if she's upset, she'll grab a pan or a brick or a TV or whatever, you know what I'm saying? And oh yeah, I've seen that from my granny, my mama, my cousins. So it's very, very violent.
And like Cassandra said, we had a previous episode about domestic violence, and it's not just physical, right? It's emotional, sexual, financial.
And that was another thing. Verbal abuse too. And even as a kid, I didn't think it was verbal abuse. I just knew that, like, some of the things I heard my brother daddy say to my mama, it just was very, I knew it wasn't nice and it made me feel some type of way, but I was too young to say, oh, that's verbal abuse. You know what I'm saying? So I just was like, I don't like it.
How does she react when he would be verbally abusive to her?
At first, she got offended, like she'll say stuff back. And then toward the end, she always had, and she'll be open and honest with anybody, she called it her exit plan. So she just kind of, I don't even want to say put up with it because she didn't, but she saw her way out. She saw the light at the end of the tunnel. So she kind of pretended to, kind of stick with it just to. So she was in school. Let me start by saying that. She was in school getting her degree, and I guess she was just kind of toughing it out until she could get out. And it wasn't long, but at first I think she cared a lot because I'm sure she loved him, so we're just like, why are you being so mean? Why are you being so hurtful? And then after a while, it just was like, doesn't even matter anymore. We're about to be over anyway.
Okay. Megan, our Lady Nova.
Yeah, so like I said, my parents were together. Well, they got married in 85. I don't know how long they talked before they got married. I asked a question. Nobody can give me a direct answer. So I don't care. They're together now. That's where I leave it. They worked at the same place for 20 plus years.
Lord, wait. Okay, can you please explain? Because I worked with Chad for a month and about killed him.
And that is what I try to understand, because like I said in the last episode, that's all I've known. Like all three of us, that's all we've known is for my parents to be together. So married, they lived with my godmom for a while so they can build up money. Like, so my sister and brother were raised at my godmom's house. And then by the time they got to me, we moved into the house before this one. So they lived there, and where they stayed then, you could literally see their job outside of my granny's window, like literally right there. So they worked there for 20 plus years, and they'd go to lunch together. After that, they come pick us up. Very involved in the church realm. So if we had a church program, we were going to church, be there for hours, come home, do it all over again. Weekends, we'd go out. And like, if we didn't go to the flea market, we might take a road trip to Myrtle Beach just to go out there, or Savannah, Georgia, kind of like chill out, come back, go to church. There's never a moment I have not seen my parents together. Like, I'm stressed about it because I'm like, my God.
So how did they handle it when it comes to y'all? Like, if you guys had conflict with each other or y'all were upset and went to them, like, how is that? So not just your parents' relationship, but like everybody in that immediate family.
So before, not a thing. There wasn't really any talking. If we did, of course, it was a religious aspect, and it turned into a family meeting. where my daddy did most of the talking, and I just kind of sat there. Because what am I supposed to say now? Like, that happened hours ago. And for the most part, like I said, he was working 2 to 3 jobs. So by the time we had our argument, this was after we got out of school. So it was like 4:30. He's not coming home till 10, 11 o'clock. And he's like, coming to the room, going to den. It was a lecture because at this point, we've argued, probably broke something, because that was our thing. Our meaning me and my brother, because my brother has broken the 10 Commandments like 3 times and glued it back together because he had an attitude with me.
So opening it back up to everybody, how do you guys feel like you have repeated certain patterns that you've seen in your immediate family and your relationships and dating and love? How have you repeated some of those things?
They are their own individuals. So there's never a moment where my daddy was like, because his father taught him how to be as a man and what's supposed to be done, he never made that a thing where it's like, oh, I'm the provider, you stay home, and that's it. My mama was gonna have that, because she was like, so you met me working, and I'm going to continue to work, and if you don't like that, we can go our separate ways. Point blank, period. So they are both individuals. Granted, they do have a lot of time together, but when she wanted to go see The Color Purple in New York, she was like, yeah, I'm going. I was like, where's Daddy's suitcase? There is none. He's not going. I was like, oh, then okay, sure. If I'm upset, give me some time to chill out, and then we can talk about it later. But I'll never, victimize them in front of family or friends or nothing. It's like, okay, duly noted. This was said, this happened. We will discuss it when we get home.
So, okay, when I would feel away or when there's like sudden or potential conflict, I internalize my feelings a lot, because growing up, when I would express them, there was no resolution as to how we were going to resolve this issue. So I feel like bringing them up into relationships, it still won't fix it or whatever, because that's kind of how the dynamic has been growing up. So yeah, and Daisha knows firsthand. Like anytime I bring an issue up to her, she'd be like, "Well, have you thought about talking to the person?" And I'd be like, "No, just fuck them."
But and you know what that is? That's avoidance.
Yeah. So that's really what it is for me. Now, I've definitely have worked on that now, but it's still baby steps. It really is. It really still baby steps. So that's my answer.
I do have a question. So when you say
when you went to your parents or your family members about your feelings, did you feel dismissed or did you feel heard and they just didn't come up with a solution? They just said, "We hear you, but go on ahead about your business." Like, which one was it?
Heard, but they ain't going about your business.
Okay. So just no sense of urgency to problem solve.
Exactly. Yeah.
I was about to say, my question for him, since it's about parents and love, do you trade up? And again, we can edit this out. Do you feel like because of what your dad did, that would have conflicted you with relationships, or that just had nothing to do with you at all? Like him stepping out, yeah. Because people would think like, oh, because that's what he know his dad to do, and he's known that's why he's going. Maybe that's something that'll be a part of him down the line, or I don't know.
That's a good question.
That is a great question, and I don't think it has nothing to do with my dad and his, adultery ways, and things like that. I don't think
not adultery ways.
and I tell people this all the time. I think that because issues weren't really resolved, and I feel like, although you hear my feelings, but you're not fixing the problem, or whatever. I always just kind of internalize those things and kind of like raise myself to be more independent and not to rely on someone to fix problems for me. I hope that makes sense. So
yeah.
Okay. So yeah.
But at the same time, you're not fixing the problem; you're just avoiding it.
Because I feel like if I do say it, there's no resolution beyond that. So I rather just avoid it. So
So then, have you been confronted with people where you had an issue, you presented it to them, and then nothing was done, like dating wise?
Now it's happened more often because I feel like I've come in contact with people who are very open and having conversations, especially like
Yeah.
so especially with the type of people that I date. So yeah.
Yes, that is now being resolved.
Yes, like I said before, I have been working on that a lot more now in my dating life, because mainly because of the people that I come in contact with who are very open, who are like willing to hear me out and also put in the effort to resolve whatever it is, outside excluding like how my family or like, being raised up. Now I feel like I'm in this space where people are actually putting in the effort to make the change, behind how I'm feeling, if that makes sense. So yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, which must feel good because that changes what you already believe, right? Because if someone did the opposite, if you told them, well, I have an issue with this, and they're like, you good, then you're like, see, that's what people do. And that already confirms what you believe. But for them to do the opposite, you're like, oh, okay. Well, maybe some people do have a little bit of sense about them.
Exactly.
Problem solved instead of just leaving things.
Yeah, between friends and dating, there's definitely have been a change of how I used to feel up until now. So yeah.
Okay. Cassandra, I think you haven't gone.
How
have you repeated certain patterns? Oh, you already knew the question. Look at you. Fly.
I am also loud and I can be very violent, and it's not the best, and I'm not gonna sit here and be like, oh, well, I saw my mama do it, so I'm gonna do it. I don't think it was on purpose. I just think it was always like, okay, well, when she was mad, she yelled, she was loud, she got run across, she felt better. So I just that's just me talking, when I get upset.
I'm a challenge that. Go ahead and finish.
So I do the same thing when I get upset. I get loud and I do feel better after, at least for a little bit. But in the moment, like I'm like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you're gonna hear me. I'm upset. You need to hear what I have to say.
Do you think that they hear you any clearer because you are loud and okay? I just wanted to check.
In fact, I feel like I've learned recently that they get frustrated because I'm loud. I get frustrated because they're not listening to me. And it's like, okay, well, I know you hear me. I'm loud enough. But they hear my voice, but they're not listening to my words because why should he? You know what I'm saying? You're yelling at me. I don't want to talk to you right now. Calm down. We can talk about this as sensible adults. That's still something I'm working on. I can't sit here and say I don't still go and yell and cut up, but I do have to understand that I'm just not going to be heard yelling like that.
So, and that goes to show the differences based on how you guys were raised. She was raised with the boisterous, the loud, you gonna hear me. Whereas you had a mom who's like, I'm here, you can come down to my level or not. Those two people in a relationship, what's gonna happen? That kind of thing. Like, we have to realize you are a product of your environment. I am similar to my mother in that I don't think that I'm an alpha female, but the people I've dated say that I am, or that I'm bossy. Again, I don't feel like I'm bossy. I always respond with, I just know what I want. That's just what it is. I am not a yeller, but I used to be a person who's like, if I want to talk about something, we're going to talk about it right now. And I had to learn from my first serious relationship, that is not how things go for some. Some people need time to process. But one of the things I wanted to bring up so that I didn't forget was something that triggers me in relationships and in friendships is people who lack punctuality, or people who are flaky. And that has been a trigger for me all of my life. Well, most of my adult life. And I never understood why. Because it's one thing to get annoyed if someone's like, hey, I'm running behind and they're 20 minutes late. It's another thing when it's a repeated thing. And we're going to have a real moment. So Cassandra, I love Cassandra dearly. But out of our group of friends, Cassandra tends to be very tardy. And so that would be an example of like me getting really frustrated. I'm like, why do I get so frustrated about this thing? Like, it's not a life or death situation, but for some reason, this one thing really, not just you, people in general, that bothers me. And so one of my classes for therapy, my professor literally said, there's a kid whose parent is incarcerated, and they're in a relationship and they get triggered every time their boyfriend shows up late to dinner. Of course, she didn't know that was my history, but when she said it, I was like, that makes sense. As I said, I don't know how long we've been doing this, but several minutes earlier, that my dad was away for years. And what would happen is, I remember being like 7, and he would say, you know, I'm going to come home on August. And as a kid, I always had a calendar. I'm marking down all the days until August 10th. He wouldn't show up. He would say it again, I'm coming home in December. Mark down the days, he wouldn't show up. And so by the time I was 8, I was like, okay, I'm going to take his words with a grain of salt. Whenever he's here, he's here. But that stayed with me, obviously, because when people don't follow through on the things they say, it pisses me off. It makes my blood boil. And if I'm in a relationship with you, I tend to be a very patient person and very chill. But that is the thing for me where that's the first time you will see me go off on you, for real. It's not going to be smiley, Daisha. I'm not going to be joking. Like, I go off. But I had to learn, like,
oh, Lord.
But I had to learn, like, that is definitely a trigger for me. Now, does that mean I get to just go off on people every time that they're late? No. I would drive myself crazy. But I have to be mindful that is a trigger for me based on my daddy, not my mama. I forgot my own question. Oh, certain patterns. So other than that, I feel like I'm pretty communicative. When something happens with me, the whole alpha female thing, I have my own. I don't need you financially, I guess. And I guess expecting the worst too. Like, I feel like a lot of people in my family are not super expressive when they're happy about something, if that makes sense. So, like, sometimes when people find new love, they're very in their bubble and they're like, oh my gosh, this person is this, and that. I am the type of person where I get into a new relationship, I can be extremely excited about it, but I don't talk about it. And in fact, when people try to plan things with me, like months in advance, let's say a concert, I have said things, which is terrible. I have said things like, yeah, if we make it this month, then maybe we can do that. Like, I almost set myself up for the end of this thing to happen before it even gets there, because I'm expecting the worst. How do you guys plan to do things differently? Or what are some positive things that your parents might have taught you about love? Because I don't think it's all,
let's do positives.
Difficult, I'll probably end up answering both of those questions, but
I think both sides of my family have. I think the positive takeaway I got from both sides of my family is definitely stating that it's being okay with being selfish. I've said this multiple times that no matter who is your friend or who is your family or whatever, you still have yourself to consider at the end of the day, because everybody ain't, good for you. Everyone is not going to be taking care of you outside of like your immediate mom, dad, sister, brother, whatever the case is, because you can't just be like, basically setting your life based on someone else's expectations. So both sides of my family have really taught me the value of setting your own goals and pushing your own goals, no matter who's around or who you're with. So yeah.
So Trey, it's so funny you say that, because that was one of mine I was going to say too. So of course my mama had me and my brother, and my entire family, well, like I said, my immediate family, all call my mama selfish. Like my granny, my aunt, my uncle, like they'll be like, oh, Tisha, she just selfish. She don't help nobody. You ask my mama for money anytime. I ain't got it. Don't ask me. You know what I'm saying? And she was always like, I got 2 kids. I can't sit there and give you all my stuff or give you my last, because if I give it to you, how am I going to eat? How am I gonna feed my kids? And so just like you said, my mama taught me it is okay to say no. It's okay to be selfish. It's okay to say I don't want to and I don't have to. Yeah. It was that, and then her other biggest thing was you can bounce back from pretty much any and everything that didn't kill you. And she told me this since I was little. I was in elementary school. Like, I've only ever seen my mama cry, I want to say maybe twice in my whole entire life. I mean, I'm sure she cried like in the shower or in her room or something like that, but she never ever let things hold her down. Like if something happened, she'd always say, well, you didn't die, so let's see what we can do. You know what I'm saying? And it used to be like a joke at first, but when I got older, I actually understood what that meant. Of course, people always say, what doesn't kill you make you stronger, I get it. But you know what I'm saying? Like, she never made excuses for it. She always was like, all right, well, we ain't dead, so let's figure out a solution.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy enough, I'm teaching them the selfish stuff because I can be real selfish. You don't think I am, but again, if you ain't helping me, helping them, you're not about to run him in the ground yet again. It's not gonna happen. So when I see people calling his phone, oh yeah, we need you to, can't. Sorry, where he at? I am the secretary today. He can't be leaving back out of that door. It is 8:00. If your toilet don't work, it won't be working. You should have called a plumber. Don't know what to tell you. What they have taught me, have faith, because a lot of the stuff that we've got now isn't all solely them. They had to believe in someone, another being, for all of this to be about. So I don't like everything that my family does when it comes to my immediate family. I know that when times get hard, I can ask them. It's very hard. I do not like asking for help, and it's taken a long time to do that. When it comes to my relationships, I've never not known my daddy to not do for my mama. She's never gone without. I want to brag on something, but that's their business. I remember, I think in like 2003 for the anniversary, he went and bought her a car. And he was like, well, that's what you want. Cool. It is what it is.
One major thing that I have been doing differently in my relationships is I'm in therapy. I'm the only person in my family that is in therapy. And in my personal opinion, I feel like everyone should go. I don't think you should just go when some kind of crisis happens or you're having a breakdown in life. I think you should go and it's more proactive so that you have tools to deal with hard times. But step off my soapbox. So I'm in therapy, and then also, even though I'm very sensitive and emotional, I use that as information to, first of all, understand myself, but then to explain that to my partner or to my friends so that, we can talk about it and hopefully resolve said issue. And then positives that I've gotten from my family. My family is very welcoming and very big on family. Like, you're there for each other. I have yet to be in a relationship with someone who was close to their family. Mm-hmm. And so I tell them like, oh yeah, people came over, so they're like, what holiday was it? I was like, oh, just because. And they're like,
it was
okay.
just one.
So I like that we're very supportive and loving to each other. And just want the best, really. I don't feel like there's anyone in my family who's secretively like jealous of anyone. We're always trying to push each other to do bigger and better things. So on that note, has been enlightening, hopefully, for everyone. Let us know, what have your parents taught you about love, and do you still follow some of those same patterns that exist in your family? Join us every Monday.
Like,
comment, subscribe.
Not her yelling from the abyss. And gas us up.